Setting up web server, web applications, and virtual machine can be difficult for beginners, but with the proper guidance, this can be done easily. I am January L. Gonzalez, and I'll be your guide in setting up web server, web application, and virtual machines. Let us begin setting up a local web server. The main job of a web server is to display website content by storing, processing, and delivering web pages to the users. We will use SAMP to create our local web server. To start with, open your web browser and then navigate to apachefriends.org. Then click SAMP for Windows to download the latest version of SAMP. I have already downloaded the file, so I should just navigate to my downloads folder. I'm gonna open the installer and wait for the installation wizard to show up. Just click OK and then proceed as usual. You can see here there are a lot of components that can be installed. For now, I will be installing all of them. Then the SAMP directory will be on drive C. We need to wait for this to finish. Let's end the installation process and start the control panel now. This is the SAMP control panel. We only need to start two of the modules, Apache and MySQL. To test if our SAMP installation is successful, let us open our web browser and then navigate to localhost/php myadmin. Since we were able to visit this page successfully, it means the SAMP installation is a success. We can now proceed to the installation of a web application or a computerized system. So the computerized system that we will use is called Open Supports. So let's navigate to opensupports.com. Open Supports is an open source software used for ticketing. Open Supports is an open source ticketing system developed primarily with PHP and Laravel. So let's go to the download page. Then just click the download button here. Okay, let's open the file. Okay, the following files here should be copied in a directory inside our htdocs. So let's open our File Explorer and then navigate to local disk C, to our SAMP directory, and then go to htdocs. Here we will create a new folder and let's name it Open Supports. open the file and let us extract everything in this folder. Now that we're done, we can close these two and then go back to our web browser. Okay, let's visit localhost, and then now the name of the folder we've just created, that is Open Supports. Okay, the installation wizard for the web application is now being displayed. So let's go ahead and set up our web application. Just click next. All of our server requirements are already met, so we can just click next. Here in our MySQL server, we can just put localhost, and then we can leave the server port blank because it will default to 3306. In our MySQL database name, we have to create a new database name. So let's create a database name. Let's call it DB Open Supports, then create. Okay, the database is successfully created. Let's go back to the installation wizard of Open Supports, and then let's put our newly created database, that is DB Open Supports. The default MySQL user is of course root, and no password has been set up yet, so let's leave it blank. Then click next. Then the name of our web application, we'll name it Open Supports, and let's leave the email server blank. Click next. Once we are done with step 5, we will be asked to create an account for an admin. So here it is. The account name, I'll put admin.january, and then I'll put my personal email, and then create a admin password. We should remember these account details because it will be used on our virtual machines soon. Then click next. Okay, it says here that we were able to successfully install Open Supports. Okay, let's try to log in using my personal email address and my password. And that's it. We were able to set up our web application. So just a recap, we've installed SAMP. We also installed Open Supports, and now all of them are working properly. Let us now configure our virtual machine. But before installing anything, we need a crossover cable. This crossover cable will be used to connect the two desktop units we will use. I am going to plug in this cable to the two units so we can establish connection. After plugging in the crossover cable, we have to set up a static IP address. So open up your control panel, then go to your network and sharing center and click this Ethernet. Then go to properties and visit IPv4 address. Let's set up our desired IP address, which is 192.168.55.1. Okay, so from now on, this will be the IP address of our host machine. This will be very important because every time we connect to our server, we will use this IP address. So click OK. To verify if we were successful in setting up that static IP address, let's issue a ipconfig command, all ipconfig / all command in our command prompt, and there we have it, the IP address we've just created. Okay, so let's visit our open supports. Okay, so last time we visited open supports with this URL, but now let us practice to use our IP address, which is 192.168.55.1. Okay, so we were able to visit the local installation of open supports, so we're good to go. We can now proceed with the installation of our with the installation of our virtual machine. So I already have the installer of VirtualBox here, so I'm gonna run the installer and then install the software normally. This one will take less than 1 minute to be installed. Okay, this will automatically launch the VirtualBox. Let's create a new virtual machine. Let's name it VM Linux Mint, and let's allocate 4 GB of RAM and 50 GB of storage. Okay, let's power on or start the virtual machine by clicking this start button. And let's click this folder here. It is looking for a startup disk or a disk image file, or a most commonly known as the ISO of an operating system. So let's find the disk image file for Linux Mint. Okay, for our host machine, we will use, for the virtual machine of our host machine, we'll use Linux Mint, choose, and then start. Okay, let us start Linux Mint. Okay, so click install Linux Mint. Okay, let us select English as our language. English as our keyboard layout. We will skip the installation of multimedia codecs. Then click install now. My name would just be Linux Mint, then set up my password. Then let's restart. So we cannot see the whole screen properly. Let's go to full screen and then fix the screen resolution. Okay, so we are successful in the installation of a new operating system in our virtual machine. But now we have to test if we are able to connect to our host machine. So open up our web browser. In this case, we have Firefox. And then let's navigate to 192.168.55.1. Okay, this is the IP address of our host machine / open supports. If we are able to see the open supports page here, it means that we have configured our virtual machine successfully. Okay, there we have it. We are successful in visiting the open supports page. Let's try to log in my admin account. Okay, there we have it. We are already visiting the open supports page or web application in our virtual machine. So what we'll do next is to replicate the same thing, create a virtual machine on another desktop. So that's it. So we are now using the desktop number 2. We will try to open our installation of open supports using this desktop unit, and then later on we will also create a virtual machine, then access the open support installation on our host machine. So to prove that we are connected to our host machine, we will issue a ping command. Bring up your command prompt and then issue a ping command to 192.168.55.1. This is the IP address of our host machine. Okay, so there we have it. We were able to ping our host machine, meaning we are connected. So let's visit open supports. Open supports. Okay, we can visit open supports successfully. Now let's set up a virtual machine. Let's go to our downloads folder, then install VirtualBox again. So we'll just replicate what we did earlier. Okay, let's launch the VirtualBox and create a new virtual machine. Let's name it Linux Manjaro. Then give our virtual machine 4 GB of RAM and 50 GB of storage. Then start the machine. Of course, we need to load or add the disk image file of Manjaro, which I downloaded ahead of time. Then choose. Then let's boot it with open source drivers. So Manjaro is now booting up. Okay. Let's install Manjaro. Our keyboard layout is English US default. Then erase the disk. Hit next. And let's go for minimal installation to speed up the installation process. Let's select no office, then install. Okay, we will need to wait for this process to finish. Okay, the installation is now done. Let us restart our virtual machine. Okay, so let's log in. Okay, let's visit our installation of Open Supports. Okay, so I've just full screen the virtual machine. Let's go to admin login, then log in my admin account. Okay, so there we have it. We are successful in configuring virtual machines, and we are successful configuring 2 workstations with 1 virtual machine each. Our first workstation has a Linux Mint, and then for the second one, we have the Linux Manjaro. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you.